Today, you will learn a daily routine that you can follow to become fluent in English with only 30 minutes per day. So, if you're busy and you only have 30 minutes a day, then this will be perfect for you. We're going to go over three incredibly efficient exercises that will improve all six of your skills in English all at the same time. Those skills being your vocabulary, your grammar, your reading, your listening, your writing, and your speaking or pronunciation. Now, before we jump in here, I need to give you this disclaimer because there are a lot of crazy things floating around out there on the internet. So, simply put, you will not become fully fluent in English in 3 months or less by spending around 30 minutes per day learning English. It's just not going to happen. I will never tell you that lie. Contrary to what a lot of things on the internet are saying, that you can become fluent in English in 3 months or less, I'm here to tell you that that is not realistic for 99.99999% of people. However, with that being said, if you study for 30 minutes per day with the exercises in this video, you will see improvement. You will see results every 2 to 3 months. But do not expect perfection. You will not be speaking perfectly fluent in English in the span of 3 months by spending 30 minutes per day learning. You need to understand that learning English is comparable to learning how to play an instrument for the first time or learning how to play a new sport for the very first time. So imagine how difficult it is to learn how to play a guitar well from scratch, or how to be a great basketball player or a great soccer player from scratch. It takes a lot of time, a lot of repetitions, and a ton of practice. Now, in order to understand these three exercises, you must understand the 4 stages of learning any language that you're naturally going to follow. The first stage of learning a new language is the foundation. These are basic and common vocabulary words and basic grammar. Now, before you start learning a new language, you should understand the most common vocabulary words that you will hear the most frequently. When it comes to grammar, you do not need to know advanced grammar and crazy and tricky grammatical rules, but you should understand just basic grammar. Basic grammar means how to say something in the past versus the present or the future. For example, I was recording a video, I am recording a video, and I will record a video. Knowing basic grammar, such as this, is a part of the foundation of learning any new language. Now, the second stage of language learning would be observation, which consists of reading and listening. When it comes to reading, you should be reading texts that were composed by native English speakers with good grammar. When it comes to listening, grammar is a little bit less of a factor when it comes to speaking English. Even as native English speakers, we do not follow all of the grammatical rules perfectly. And there are a lot of native English speakers out there who do not understand grammatical rules themselves. The third stage of English would be application, which consists of writing and speaking. The foundation, being vocabulary and grammar, will help you be able to read and listen. By being able to read and listen and observe, native English speakers will help you to begin to write and to speak. You cannot skip application, as if you ever want to be able to speak in English or write in English, you will need to physically speak and physically write, type, or text. And the fourth stage of language learning is simply just getting feedback. Now, if you're at the A1 level of English, being the elementary level, the A2 level, being the pre-intermediate level, or the B1 level, being the intermediate level, then I would highly recommend that you get your feedback from a native English speaker. Now, if you're at the B2 level of English, upper intermediate, C1, or C2 levels of English, where you're basically proficient, then honestly, at that stage of your learning, you can get feedback by yourself. You could probably determine which areas you're struggling with and which areas you are less familiar with when it comes to learning English. Now that the four stages of language learning are clear, let's get into the exercises. The first exercise simply consists of reading well written text in English and dictating it with audio. By doing this, this is going to improve your vocabulary, your grammar, your reading, and your listening. So you're working on your foundation and your observation skills. You can definitely do this in less than 10 minutes per day by using applications such as LingQ, which is 100% free. With LingQ, you can read written text in English and you can dictate it with audio.
Identification.
And if you don't understand any word in what you're reading, you can simply click on it and it will give you the translation and definition. In addition to this, LingQ has text at all of the different levels of English, all the way from A1 up to C2. If you were reading a book and you had to stop and look up every single word or expression you didn't understand, this could honestly take well over an hour. But with LingQ, you can do this exercise extremely efficiently with only 5 to 10 minutes per day. This is something that's super easy to do when you wake up in the morning or before you go to bed at night. This leads to the second exercise, which is simply just watching videos in English with English subtitles. This is incredibly efficient because when you're watching videos in English with subtitles, you're working on your vocabulary, your grammar, your reading, your listening, and possibly even your speaking as well simultaneously if you use the shadowing technique. The beautiful thing about watching videos in English is that you can actually associate all of the imagery and the context and everything that is going on the screen to the words that you're actually reading in the subtitles. It's very, very important that you associate the words with images as opposed to translating words in English back to your native language in your own head. When you come across objects or different scenarios in real life in English, your first reflex should be able to identify what's going on in the English language as opposed to identifying it in your native language and then trying to translate it into English. By associating English words with imagery, it makes your English skills much more spontaneous and much more natural than they otherwise would have been. Watching videos is also, in a sense, a form of feedback. If you can understand 80% or more of what's being said, then honestly, you could even move up to another level of more complicated and more advanced English media. If you understand less than 80% of what you're consuming, then that might be a sign that you're not quite at that level yet, and you should be listening to more simple English media that you can understand more of. This leads to the final exercise, which is also quite efficient, which is just testing yourself. There are a number of different ways to test yourself, but I'll give you two that are incredibly simple and easy to do in the span of 10 minutes or less. First, you can simply just consume media while the subtitles are turned off. This way, you can really test how well you can understand English organically by just looking at a screen and observing what's happening. You should get some repetition of consuming media without subtitles because when you run into a real life situation where you're communicating with a native English speaker, such as myself, there will not be magical subtitles above my head dictating what I'm saying. It's important that you really hone in on your listening comprehension skills in a spontaneous and organic manner, as well as using subtitles. And the next easy way to test yourself is just by recording yourself answering open ended questions at least one time per month. You can do it more than once a month, but I'd recommend at least one time per month. This way, each month you can measure the results and see if you're actually making progress and if the methods you're using are actually being executed properly. Now, after you record yourself, I would say you can honestly measure results by yourself if you're at the B2, C1, or C2 levels of English. However, if you're at the A1, A2, or B1 levels of English, I would highly recommend getting feedback and having your results measured by a native English speaker as opposed to yourself. As an experienced language learner or an experienced English learner, it'll be pretty easy for you to identify what is considered normal in English and what is not considered normal in English. You'll be able to pick up pretty quickly on what you're familiar with and what you are not familiar with. This will be a lot more confusing for those who are at the beginner levels or even the B1 lower intermediate levels. And finally, as a bonus exercise, a great way to do all of this in one in way under 30 minutes per a day is simply just watch a piece of content. It could be long or it could be short. It could be something on TikTok that is 5 seconds long, or it could be something on YouTube that is 10 minutes long. Nonetheless, watch the content, and after you're done watching the content, express your opinion about it. Simply pull up the notes application on your phone or use a Google document on your computer and just express your opinion. Start typing out or texting out or even writing out on paper your opinion of the video that you just watched. Especially with the spell check tools on your notes application or a Google document, you'll be able to quickly pick up on the words that you do not understand and the grammatical mistakes that you're making. By doing this exercise every day, which can take way under 30 minutes per day, you're essentially exercising all of the skills of the English language, being the foundation, vocabulary, and grammar, observation, being reading and listening, application, being writing and speaking, and then honestly, feedback because you're recording yourself and you'll be able to observe it afterwards. Now, again, if you do this for 30 minutes or less per day, you will definitely see results over the span of every 2 to 3 months. However, don't expect to be perfectly fluent in English in 3 months or less. This will take time and this will take some patience. Now, out of curiosity, let me know in the comments where you're from and what your native language is. And if you found this video useful, please like the video to tell YouTube that you did find this video useful. That's all for today, and I will see you in the next video.